I never imagined that the strongest love of my life would one day tremble under the weight of a secret. For years, I believed nothing could shake what we had built. We had survived distances, disappointments, career changes, family crises, and nights filled with doubts. Every storm that came our way only reinforced my certainty that she and I were unbreakable. I used to say that even if the world fell apart, I would still find a way to hold her hand. But I was wrong. Because the storm that nearly shattered us didn't come from outside. It came from inside her heart. And I never saw it coming. I still remember the first day I saw her, standing under that dim cafe light, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear as she looked at the menu like it was a complex puzzle. I don't know what it was about her, but something inside me knew I had to speak to her. I had to know her name. And when she looked up and caught me staring, she smiled. That smile was the beginning of everything. It disarmed me and rebuilt me at the same time. I wasn't looking for love, but she made me look anyway. From that day forward, we were inseparable. She made ordinary moments feel cinematic. A walk in the rain. Cooking pasta at midnight. Fixing a broken lamp together. Every tiny moment became a memory I wanted to protect. I never doubted her. Not once. Her presence was my anchor. Her voice was home. And I thought, foolishly, that nothing could ever change the way she looked at me. But life has a strange way of testing convictions. Sometimes, it doesn't break you with chaos or tragedy. Sometimes, it breaks you with silence. With hesitations. With moments that don't make sense until it's too late. It started almost imperceptibly. I would glance at her while we watched a movie, and instead of being absorbed, she looked distracted. When I asked if she was fine, she said she was just tired. For the first time since I met her, her smile felt rehearsed. Weeks passed, and the distance only grew. She would stay quiet during dinner, staring at her plate like she was somewhere else completely. At night, she turned to the far edge of the bed instead of curling into me like she used to. And every time I reached for her, she would hesitate before letting me touch her. That hesitation was barely 1 second long, but it cut through me like a blade every time. I tried to convince myself it was temporary. Stress from work. Anxiety. Something unrelated to us. Because the idea that she could be pulling away felt too unbearable to consider. She was the one person I trusted blindly. She didn't have to earn that trust. She simply had it. And that trust would be the very thing that nearly destroyed me. One night, just after she got home, I heard her crying in the shower. Not normal soft crying. It was the kind of crying someone tries to swallow because they don't want to be heard. The kind of sound that cracks something inside you. I wanted to knock on the door, but some instinct told me she didn't want to be found. So I sat on the floor outside the bathroom, listening to the water run as her sobs faded into silence. I thought about every worst-case scenario. Was she sick? Was someone in her family struggling? Was she hiding financial problems? My mind raced in 1,000 directions, but not once did it land on the truth. Later, when she came out of the bathroom, her eyes were red but she forced a smile as if nothing had happened. She walked past me, kissed my forehead gently, and whispered that everything was fine. But it wasn't. I could feel it. Her kiss didn't taste like reassurance. It tasted like goodbye. I prayed it was my imagination. Days passed, then weeks, and the distance became a shadow living inside our house. I tried to talk to her countless times, sitting across from her at the table and begging with my eyes for her to open up. She always said the same thing. She was just tired. She loved me. She was fine. But her voice betrayed her. It trembled in the middle. It cracked on certain words. Sometimes she avoided eye contact altogether. And the way she held me changed. Her hugs were shorter. Softer. Like she was afraid to cling to me too tightly. Or maybe afraid that I would cling too tightly to her. My friends told me I was reading too much into things. That relationships go through cycles. That I should give her space. But they didn't know her the way I did. They didn't know how she used to laugh with her whole body. How she used to talk non-stop about her day, even when nothing special happened. They didn't know the way she used to look at me as if I were the safest place in the world. That look had vanished. And its absence haunted me. I started losing sleep. I would lie awake at night, watching the ceiling, feeling an ache in my chest that only grew heavier with each passing day. Something was wrong. Something big. But no matter how much I begged her to open up, she chose silence over honesty. That silence became its own kind of betrayal. One night, she didn't come home until almost 3 in the morning. She had never done anything like that in all the years we were together. I waited for her on the couch, my heart beating painfully fast, imagining car accidents, emergencies, anything that could explain why she didn't answer her phone. When she finally walked through the door, she looked startled to see me awake. She said she had gone out with coworkers, lost track of time, and didn't hear her phone. Her explanation didn't match her expression. Her voice was shaky, and her eyes kept darting away from mine. I asked her if something was wrong. If she still loved me. If I had done something. She insisted everything was fine and begged me not to overthink. She kissed me, held me, told me she loved me over and over, like she was trying to convince herself as much as me. But even in her arms, I felt alone. The next morning, she left early for work. And the very moment the door closed behind her, I broke down. I felt helpless. Powerless. Terrified. I had survived so many hardships in my life, but nothing prepared me for the fear of losing her. That fear consumed me. I spent the whole day trying to distract myself, but my mind was restless. I kept replaying every detail from the night before. Her shaky voice. Her distant eyes. The fact that she came home so late. I hated myself for doubting her, but something inside me whispered that I needed to understand what was happening. I needed to know the truth even if it killed me. When she got home that evening, she looked exhausted. More exhausted than I had ever seen her. She walked straight to the bedroom and collapsed on the bed. I sat beside her and gently brushed her hair back. She opened her eyes and looked at me with a sadness so deep it felt like it belonged to someone else. I took a shaky breath and asked one more time if she was okay. Her lips parted as if she wanted to finally say something, but then she closed her mouth again. She turned to face the wall instead of me. At that moment, something inside me broke. The woman who once told me everything now couldn't even look at me. I lay beside her that night, staring at the back of her head, wondering how love could slip away so quietly. The next day, something happened that changed everything. I had forgotten my laptop at home. I drove back during my lunch break, walked inside, and froze. She was standing in the middle of the living room, holding her phone, crying. Not just crying. She was trembling. She looked like someone who had been holding the world on her shoulders for far too long. She hadn't heard me come in. And before I could say anything, she whispered, to no one but herself, that she couldn't do this anymore. That she needed to tell me the truth. I felt the world tilt under my feet. My voice cracked when I said her name. She jumped and dropped her phone. When she realized I had heard her, she collapsed into the nearest chair, covering her face with her hands. I walked toward her with my heart pounding so loud I felt dizzy. She kept apologizing and crying, saying she never meant to hurt me. I begged her to tell me what was going on. My voice sounded desperate even to me. She looked at me then, with eyes full of fear and guilt. And in that moment, I knew that whatever she was about to say would change everything. But I still wasn't prepared. She took a deep breath, wiped her face, and whispered that she had been hiding something from me for months. Something that started small, something she thought she could handle, but it spiraled out of control until she didn't recognize herself anymore. She said she had tried to protect me, to protect us, but the guilt was destroying her. And then she said the words that made my chest tighten painfully. She said she hadn't stopped loving me. Not for a second. But she had made a mistake. A mistake she didn't know how to undo. A mistake she feared would make me walk away forever. My hands went cold. My vision blurred for a moment. I felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff, waiting for the ground to disappear beneath me. I asked her what mistake she was talking about. And she hesitated. That hesitation was filled with every answer I didn't want to hear. She finally opened her mouth to speak. And then she told me the secret that nearly broke us. When the words finally left her lips, they didn't come out in a single sentence. They came in fragments, trembling, like her voice was trying to hold itself together while everything inside her was falling apart. She told me she had been followed home several months ago by someone from her past. Someone she had never wanted to see again. Someone who once made her feel small, controlled, and powerless. She hadn't told me about him because she didn't want to worry me, and because she thought ignoring him would make him disappear. But he didn't disappear. He started sending messages from unknown numbers, appearing at places she frequented, and leaving notes on her car windshield. At first, she pretended it didn't scare her. She deleted messages, crumpled notes, and convinced herself it wasn't worth my worry. She thought she could protect both of us by staying silent. But silence only strengthened his confidence. And soon, he was calling her at all hours. Sometimes he threatened to show up at our house. Other times he pretended he wanted closure, but his words always twisted into something darker, something meant to manipulate her fear. I felt a chill crawl down my spine as she explained all this. My mind raced through 1,000 possibilities at once. Rage burned inside me, but it was buried under something heavier, the realization that she had been going through this alone, night after night, while sleeping beside me. She had cried in the shower because she didn't want me to hear. She had turned away in bed because she didn't want to wake me with her shaking. Every time she came home late, she had driven in circles, checking to see if she was being followed. She wasn't distant because she didn't love me. She was distant because she was terrified. But that wasn't the secret that broke me. The real secret came next. She said the situation spiraled one night when he cornered her in the parking lot after work. She froze. He threatened her again, said he could ruin both of us if he wanted. He claimed he knew where I worked, who my family was. He knew details he shouldn't know. She panicked. And in her fear, she made a decision she regretted instantly. She told him she would meet him one last time if he promised to leave us alone. My heart clenched so hard it felt like I couldn't breathe. She swore she didn't go because she wanted to. She went because she thought she was protecting me. Protecting our life. Protecting everything we had built. She said she told herself it was just a conversation. A final confrontation. But when she saw him, he manipulated her again, twisted her fear until she felt trapped, stuck choosing between two losses. She said nothing happened between them, but she shouldn't have gone. And she was terrified that I would interpret her meeting with him as betrayal. I pressed my hand to my forehead and felt my skin go cold. I wasn't angry at her for being afraid. I wasn't angry at her for being stalked or manipulated. I was angry that she walked into that moment alone, that she didn't trust me enough to face it with her. She thought she was protecting me, but what she did instead was isolate herself until the weight became unbearable. I asked why she didn't tell me. Why she didn't trust me to stand with her. She couldn't look me in the eyes when she whispered that she was afraid I'd see her differently. That I would think she had let her past define her. That I would blame her. The moment she said that, everything inside me softened and shattered at the same time. Because I realized her greatest fear wasn't the man who stalked her. Her greatest fear was losing me. And that thought broke me even more deeply than the secret itself. She cried after that, harder than before. She said the guilt had eaten her alive, because hiding it from me felt like a lie. She said every night she lay beside me, she wondered if she was making the right choice by keeping me in the dark. But every time she tried to tell me, her fear of hurting me choked the words in her throat. I sat there, numb, listening to her break apart in front of me. My hands were shaking. My mind was clouds and lightning. I felt pain and anger and helplessness all tangled together so tightly I didn't know which emotion belonged to which thought. I had no idea what to say. All I could do was breathe, slowly, because if I tried to speak then, I feared my voice would crack. She looked up at me with red, swollen eyes and said she would understand if I wanted to walk away. She said she loved me too much to trap me in her chaos. That her past was poison, and she didn't want it to destroy our future. She said she expected me to hate her. To blame her. To turn my back the same way the world once did to her. But I didn't. I couldn't. I loved her too deeply for that. I stood up, walked toward her slowly, and knelt in front of her. I lifted her chin gently and told her I wasn't going anywhere. But I also told her the truth, I was hurt. I was scared. I needed time to process everything. I needed space to think without drowning in emotion. She nodded, even though it clearly broke her. For the next few days, we lived like strangers sharing a house. Not out of anger, but out of exhaustion. Emotional wounds are strange. They don't bleed, but they ache in ways that are hard to describe. I slept on the couch for a few nights, not because I didn't want to be near her, but because I knew I needed clarity. She didn't question that. She respected what I needed, even though it pained her. During that time, I kept replaying everything in my head. Her trembling voice. Her lonely fear. Her decision to meet him. I imagined what must have been going through her mind. How scared she must have been. How isolated. How ashamed. And slowly, I stopped blaming her. I started blaming the man who pushed her into desperation. And I blamed myself too, for not noticing sooner, for not seeing how deep her suffering had become. One night, after nearly a week of silence between us, I woke up on the couch to the sound of her whispering my name. When I opened my eyes, she was sitting on the floor beside me, wrapped in one of my hoodies, shaking. She didn't touch me. She didn't assume anything. She just looked at me and said she needed help. Not from me alone, but from a professional. She said she couldn't keep living with that fear. She didn't want that man to control her life anymore. And she didn't want the secret to control our relationship either. That moment changed everything. Because for the first time since the secret came out, I saw the woman I fell in love with. The woman who faced her fears head-on. The woman who fought for us. The woman who wanted to heal instead of hide. I sat up, took her hands in mine, and told her we would face it together. Not as two broken people, but as partners. She cried into my chest for what felt like an hour. And for the first time since the storm began, I held her without fear. I held her with purpose. With conviction. The next morning, we contacted a lawyer, a counselor, and a security specialist recommended by a friend. We started documenting every message, every threat, every appearance. We built a case. I went with her to file a report, standing beside her the whole time. She squeezed my hand so tightly I could feel her nails digging into my skin, but I didn't let go. I wanted her to feel safe. To feel protected. To feel like she didn't have to fight alone anymore. The process was long and draining, but we faced it step by step. And with every step, she grew stronger. She started sleeping better. Eating better. Laughing again. She opened up to me in ways she never had before. Not because she owed me explanations, but because she didn't want to carry her pain alone. Slowly, the house stopped feeling heavy. Slowly, the silence that once suffocated us became moments of peace instead of fear. But healing isn't linear. Some nights, she still woke up shaking. Sometimes she cried without knowing why. Sometimes I felt overwhelmed too, unsure of how to comfort her. But through it all, we communicated. And communication became the bridge that pulled us out of the storm. Months passed. The case progressed. The threat stopped. The man was legally forced to stay away, and for the first time in a long time, she felt free. Not just legally, but emotionally. She reclaimed parts of herself that fear had stolen from her. And every time she grew stronger, I fell in love with her all over again. We talked about the night she met him. And she told me again that nothing happened, and that she regretted going. I believed her. Not blindly this time. But because her actions since then showed me the truth. Her honesty. Her vulnerability. Her commitment to us. None of it aligned with someone hiding a betrayal. It aligned with someone who had been forced into a desperate situation and was trying to crawl her way out of it the only way she knew. The night I finally returned to our bed, she looked at me as if she wasn't sure whether I was real. I slid beside her, wrapped my arms around her waist, and pulled her close. She exhaled shakily, resting her forehead against my chest. She whispered that she still feared losing me. I whispered that the storm had already tried to take us, and we were still standing. She didn't have to be afraid anymore. She fell asleep in my arms that night, and for the first time in months, the house felt like home again. Our journey didn't end there. Healing continued. Conversations continued. Therapy continued. But love continued too. Stronger, wiser, deeper. We didn't return to who we were before the storm. We became something else. Something braver. Something more real. Something unshakable, not because it had never cracked, but because it had been broken and rebuilt with intention. One day, months after everything calmed down, we visited the cafe where we first met. She held my hand across the table, looked into my eyes with that same disarming smile from years ago, and whispered that she was grateful I stayed. I told her I didn't stay out of obligation. I stayed because love isn't defined by the storms it avoids. It's defined by the storms it survives. And ours survived the worst one. The secret that nearly broke us ended up exposing something we had forgotten to appreciate. Love isn't flawless. It isn't always peaceful. Sometimes, love is messy, painful, frightening. But when two people choose each other even when everything feels impossible, that's when love becomes unshakable. She chose me even when she thought she didn't deserve me. And I chose her even when the truth terrified me. Our love survived every storm. And this time, we survived it together.